Wow, Robbie, from comedy to politics. My name is Désirée McGraw, and I'm passionate about politics. How can anyone be passionate about politics when everybody knows that politics is a mess? All you need to do is turn on the evening news to see that our politics is broken. We've got a crack-smoking mayor from Toronto. We've had 2 mayors here in Montreal arrested back-to-back. We have a scandal-plagued Senate in Ottawa, and we have a real parade of public inquiries into political corruption at every level of government. People feel that governments are putting private interests ahead of the public interest, that our elected representatives are in it for themselves, more interested in promoting the political class ahead of the middle class, egos instead of ethics, rhetoric instead of results. That politicians are more interested in political combat than in cooperating to get the job done, and ultimately putting short-term gains ahead of long-term stewardship. Well, that's just the way politics is, right? The problem, though, with politics as usual, is that more and more people are becoming disengaged and disillusioned. So what's a person to do if you want to engage? Where do you go? A lot of people join NGOs, or the latest trend, start a social enterprise. Now, I'm a huge fan of social entrepreneurs. We have some with us here today, and I'm proud to share the stage. But the reality is, NGOs and private initiatives simply cannot be expected to solve what are fundamentally problems of public policy. Social entrepreneurs are great at plugging leaks, but they cannot be expected to fix the big holes in the system. They're great at saying what they're for, but not necessarily articulating what they're against. Fundamentally, fighting root causes is not part of the mindset. So for every micro cause, you have an army of social entrepreneurs working hard to address that problem, and that's fantastic. It's becoming a very crowded field, with many of these people in NGOs competing for scarce resources and scarce public attention. They're also being overpowered much of the time by partisans who know the political terrain, who know how to play the game, and all too often, sadly, who put power ahead of achievement, who see power as an end in itself rather than as a means to achieving public good. So no wonder people in general, and social entrepreneurs in particular, don't want to engage in politics. But we need their passion, their sense of possibility, their professionalism, and their drive. Above all, we need people and social entrepreneurs to show a sense of political battle. Why political battle? Because issues and decisions that affect our daily lives, the big decisions, are being made by politicians. Whether it's how we spend billions of dollars of public money, or how we as Canadians want to live together as a society. Politics is just too important to ignore. The stakes are too high, and the issues are too important. Life and death, war and peace, the future of this planet, all of these decisions are made by politicians. So we've got to get the politics right. Global warming, global poverty, global pandemics, economic stagnation, recession, all of these issues require a level of action that goes well beyond what NGOs and even business can deliver. Governments set the macro environment in which these organizations and we as individuals make decisions. So it's incredibly important that we have good people in government and that we have engaged citizens who hold those governments to account. And that's why I'm so passionate about politics. Because at its best, politics is about solving problems for people and for the planet. How do I know this? I know this from firsthand experience as someone who's worked to advocate for change from outside the system and create a change in the system. I became an activist at age 16. It was the late 1980s. We were experiencing the Cold War, and there was an escalating nuclear arms race. Studies show that 25% of Canadian youth were having regular nightmares about nuclear war. Instead of worrying about it, I decided to take action. So I joined a local group called SAGE, and 4 of us decided to take a whole year off school, and we traveled from Newfoundland to British Columbia, speaking in 1 in 8 high schools in the country. We spoke to tens of thousands of students. We encouraged them to write to their members of parliament, even though they couldn't vote yet. We debated military generals, until eventually Canada's Department of National Defence started its own public awareness program promoting nuclear disarmament. We went on to speak in the United States, the former Soviet Union, and the United Nations, where we served as youth ambassadors or youth advisors on disarmament. All of these experiences showed me that political advocacy could have real impact. And so in 1992, when I went on to the Earth Summit as a global youth ambassador, I saw governments grappling with global problems such as climate change, biodiversity, and economic stagnation. More importantly, I saw that when there's enough political will, countries like Canada can truly lead the world. A few years later, I had the opportunity to serve at the very highest levels of decision-making in Canada as a senior advisor in Paul Martin's government. Part of my role involved crafting Canada's response to humanitarian crises like the Indian Ocean tsunami, as well as global pandemics like HIV/AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. I became convinced of the power of government to do good. In fact, Paul Martin said to me, "You can do more good with 5 days in government than you can in 5 months in the private and nonprofit sectors combined." So my point is that politics matters. It's not just fodder for comedians, although I do enjoy watching Stephen Colbert and Rick Mercer. It's something that affects our daily lives every day in ways big and small. And so we've got to get it right. It's about, yes, problem solving, but it's also about people. Fundamentally, politics is about representing individuals, their ideas, their interests. It's about championing causes and communities. It's about what we need, however, to change or to deliver on the promise of politics, to create some positive disruption in politics, is we need new approaches and we need new people. Now, there are lots of ideas about how we can change the, quote, game of politics, but the greatest game changer is women. Recently, Hillary Clinton said that the most important unfinished business of the 21st century is the full and equal participation of women. And I could not agree more. I could not agree more. But it's not just about equity and democracy, as important as those principles are. It's about making better decisions and getting better results. The fact is, if you're underusing 50% of your human capital, you're underperforming, whether you're a company, a community, or a country. In fact, the World Economic Forum says that countries who invest, or the countries that invest in girls and invest in women in the decision-making process, are more likely to be competitive. The good news is the gap between men and women around the world is closing, at least when it comes to health outcomes and educational attainment. However, women still lag far behind men in terms of economic empowerment and most especially political participation. Only 1 in 5 parliamentarians are women, and the numbers are much lower for ministers and heads of state and government. So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do to bring women's voices, perspectives, and qualities to politics. And we've got great qualities to bring. Women are natural problem solvers. We're natural advocates. We're practical. We want to get the job done. We don't have the time or the interest for political posturing and theater. We want real results for real people. And so I'm convinced that as more women achieve top decision-making positions in all sectors of society, we're going to see a much broader range of leadership styles, but also leadership achievements. We need a new politics of public service, one that transforms opportunities for women into better choices for everybody, and a better society for future generations. And that is what politics should be all about. Thank you.